Okay, this video is going to actually show two pieces that I'm doing because a lot of times I do work on more than one piece at a time, because while you base coat one, you can be letting the other one dry. So it just saves time sometimes. I'm not sure exactly what color I'm going to paint these yet. I haven't decided. But the first step I've got to do is really clean them good inside and out. And my husband did replace the backboard on this piece, was missing. So, but that was kind of all that was wrong with it. And this is just a little cabinet I think I'm going to set up as a coffee bar. And it's just a false bottom on it. It doesn't really have doors on the bottom, but it's cute. A little vintage piece, but that's what I'm going to do for these. Okay, I'm going to use some of this folk art wood tint in walnut to tint this back piece here, because I have decided I'm going to paint this piece white, so that way when I distress it, it will show where I've distressed it. And this is just a water base tint. I decided to paint this one Farmhouse white, and I am going to probably do some molds tonight and put on it, so you'll be able to see those. And I've taken the hardware off and cleaned it good. Okay, this piece on the coffee bar, I'm actually, I changed out the handles that were on it and filled up the old holes that we didn't need. And these handles don't really match these others, but these aren't drawers that really pull out or anything. But they look better than what was on there. So, anyways, they look pretty good because these don't come off. So, anyways, I'm going to graduate this from a light sort of it's a light gray or taupe color, really more taupe, down to a darker taupe at the bottom. And I have a transfer, or not a transfer, but a tissue, sheet of tissue that I'm going to decoupage on the front of the doors that talks about coffee bar and stuff. So it'll look cool. And it's got these colors in the tissue. So. And this actually used to be an old TV cabinet, which you probably recognize. Okay, now I'm going to start with this second gray color. And this color I'm going to use to actually paint the inside. I'm just keeping it light in here for the tissue that I'm going to put on. So I'm really not trying to blend it so much on this coat because this is the base coat, but this will give me an idea of what this is going to look like once the tissue goes on. Once the tissue goes on, I will use these paints to kind of paint around the tissue a little bit. I'm using the same brush that I used with the light. Okay, this piece has got the dried base coat on it, and I have positioned this tissue, and what I did was I had a bigger tissue poster size, but I tore the bottom part off because the whole thing wouldn't fit. So I decided this is really all I need anyway. So I'm going to use Mod Podge and adhere this to the cabinet, and then I will continue painting after this dries. And of course I can just use a razor and slice down the center. And this Mod Podge dries pretty quick, so I'm really just going to do part of it at a time. And this tissue paper can be kind of thin, so you've got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to overwork it or it will tear on you. Now I've got this tissue all Mod Podge down, and before it dries, I'm going to use some more Mod Podge to just cover it. And I'm using the matte finish on Mod Podge because I want to keep with the matte finish. If you use the glossy Mod Podge, sometimes it stays shiny, too shiny for me. Unless you want a shiny finish, then that would be what I'd use. But once this dries, I'll be able to take a razor blade and slice the center so the doors will open. And I can use just a tiny bit of Mod Podge or sealer just on the edges, so that it won't be raggedy or anything. And once this dries, I can come in and paint with my final colors all around this, and I'll probably bring the paint just up around the edges of this tissue. Mainly you want to make sure the edges are sealed in really good, that there are no loose edges. This goes on milky looking, but it will dry very clear. I've made some clay molds using this mold, which I just absolutely love, and I made one of these to go on this back here, and I've already drawn my just center guideline, and I made 3 of these, I'm going to put one on the front of each drawer. And I don't think they still sell this one, but it's called Baroque 3. You could still find it. I used to write the names of the mold on the back, but I've gotten so many of them that I think I quit doing that recently. But I'll put glue on the back of the molds. Just using Elmer's glue. And these molds I just made. This one is such a dainty, delicate mold. These I just made up and put a cloth over. Wet cloth when I wipe my finger on. to get the excess glue off, and it just keeps them soft. This line here helps keep me in line vertically, and I made a little line on each drawer so they're about the same distance down from the top of the drawer from each other, and just those little reference lines help out. Okay, this tissue has to dry completely overnight that I decoupaged on with Mod Podge. So I'm just, before I can open these doors and put the handles on, I'm just going to use this to cut this tissue. And once it's dry, it slices really easy. And because if you try to cut it when it's wet, it's going to tear the tissue. I need that. It's going to tear that tissue, so there. There. And then what you can do with these edges, you can take the sandpaper and just where that's over, once it's dry, this is easier to do, but you can't do this until it's completely dry. I'm putting some of the clay molds that I made on this piece around the tissue on the coffee bar. And I'm just trying to make it look like it's framed in right around the shape of the tissue. And you just have to play around with this a little bit as you're doing it, since it's not a uniform shape. And then what I'll do is once I get them on, I'll take the same paint and just paint it to match up when it dries. And I did actually I used the same design around it. I had both sides left and right, but I also used just the tails off one end of one to make it come down in a little curve to match. This is my third coat on this, which is not uncommon when you're painting something white or light colored. Here I'm just using some of the same paint, and I'm just painting around the molds that I put on this piece around the tissue. And the nice thing about using the clay molds is they're bendable, so I can shape it ever how I want. And I'm thinking that on both of these here, after this dries, I'm probably going to do on the top a coat of gator hide. Especially on this one, because I might even start doing it on the tops of everything just because it's watery. I'm distressing the dresser, and I usually use around 180 grit sandpaper to do this. This just exposes some of the rough wood around the edges and gives it a really cute farmhouse look. And when I'm done with that, I, of course, clean it off, vacuum it, or wipe it down, and then seal with clear wax just to protect that raw wood. Okay, I have sealed this coffee bar, using the water-based Varathane. And I also did a coat of the gator hide on the very top of it. Actually, I think I did 2 coats since it might be used for a coffee bar. And now I'm just using clear wax first, and then I'm using black wax around the details and on some of the edges, just to add a little bit of dimension to it and make the edges pop. I am applying the gold gilding wax to the details on this little primitive dresser, and just rubbing it on with my finger. And this stuff, once you let it dry overnight, it's pretty cured. You can even polish it a little bit with a dry cloth if you want it to be a little shinier. But it's just gives it a little bit of dimension on your designs or molds you put on. Here's some pictures of the coffee bar all finished. I think it turned out really nice. It's all ready to be listed for sale, and I think it turned out really nice. Here's the little finished primitive farmhouse dresser. I think turned out super cute, and it's ready to list also. And thanks for watching. Please click on like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And check out my other videos on Carolyn's painted pieces.